We are counting down 20 geography facts that prove Scotland is truly unlike anywhere else. From islands larger than Britain's capital to freshwater reserves that eclipse entire countries, each entry is backed by hard numbers, not opinion. You will see why Scotland's landscape, climate, and even culture defy expectations, whether through impossible coastlines, billion-year-old rocks, or modern achievements unmatched anywhere in the UK. Which fact tops them all? Let us begin with number 20. Scotland covers just under a third of the UK's land, but its coastline stretches close to 60% of the entire British total. That is nearly 18,700 kilometres of rugged edge, more than the rest of the UK combined. The reason lies in the geography itself. The west coast fractures into countless inlets, peninsulas and sea lochs, while islands multiply the shoreline's length at every scale. By contrast, England's coasts run straight for long distances, barely dented by estuaries or bays. Measured by the Ordnance Survey, Scotland's chaotic perimeter stands among Europe's most intricate, rivaling even Norway for complexity. This is where the mathematics of geography start to defy expectation. The Isle of Lewis and Harris covers 2,178 square kilometres, stretching across the Atlantic edge of the Outer Hebrides. Greater London, the UK's capital and home to nearly 9 million people, fits into just 1,572 square kilometres. That means this single Scottish island is almost 40% larger than the entire London region. Yet Lewis and Harris supports a population of only about 20,000. Moorland, ancient stone circles, and white beaches fill the space where London's endless streets would be. For anyone who thinks of the Hebrides as remote specks, the numbers tell a different story. Here, raw geography dwarfs the capital itself. Scotland's islands form a world of their own, nearly 790 scattered from Shetland to the Hebrides, with more than 90 permanently inhabited. Each island supports its own rhythms and traditions, shaped by separation from the mainland and from each other. Life moves to the timetable of ferries, some running only once or twice a week, especially during winter storms that can leave entire communities cut off for days. On the smallest islands, schools sometimes teach fewer than 10 children, and everyone knows one another by name. For many, island living means resilience, adapting to weather, distance, and the quiet that comes with being surrounded by water. Scotland's landscape is saturated with water in a way that's hard to grasp until you hear the numbers. Although it makes up just under a third of the United Kingdom's land, official environmental statistics report that Scottish rivers and lochs hold around 90% of the United Kingdom's surface fresh water. The scale is staggering. Over 31,000 freshwater lochs and lochans dot the country, compared to only a few hundred lakes in England. This abundance is not just a quirk of climate, it is the legacy of glaciers that gouged thousands of deep basins into the bedrock at the end of the last ice age. The result is a natural reservoir system so vast it stores more water than 2 countries combined, setting the stage for even more extreme depths to come. Loch Morar plunges to a depth of 310 metres, so deep that its floor sits 301 metres below sea level. For comparison, the North Sea averages just 95 metres deep. This means that fresh water in Morar lies hundreds of metres lower than the nearby ocean, sealed off by a rocky rim that keeps the Atlantic out. The loch's surface sits only 9 metres above sea level, but the water column stretches down into a trench carved by ancient glaciers. Murray and Puller's early 20th century bathymetric survey confirmed the numbers, and more than a century later, Morar still holds the title of the United Kingdom's deepest inland water. Scottish lochs like Morar, Ness and Lomond sit in basins so deep their floors lie well below sea level, yet their waters remain fresh water. This is the work of glaciers, massive ice sheets that once scoured the Highland valleys, carving trenches hundreds of meters down, sometimes far beneath the nearby ocean. At each loch mouth, a rim of hard rock or ancient moraine forms a natural dam, sealing the basin off from the sea. The result is a landscape where freshwater pools in over-deepened bathtubs, isolated from salt water by geological barriers. These impossible basins set the stage for Scotland's most staggering water volumes. Loch Ness holds a staggering 7,452,000,000 cubic meters of fresh water, more than every lake in England and Wales combined. Stretching 36 kilometers along the Great Glen, it forms a deep, trench-like ribbon, plunging to 230 meters at its deepest point. The sheer volume comes not from surface area, but from depth. It is a vast glacial basin carved straight through the Highlands, and because of its size and the chill mass of water below, Loch Ness almost never freezes, even in the harshest winters. On the shores of the Outer Hebrides, ancient bedrock surfaces in broad sweeps of banded stone. This is Louisian gneiss, rock forged between 1.7 and 3 billion years ago, when the Earth's atmosphere held almost no oxygen, and life was still microscopic. Radiometric dating of zircon crystals confirms its age, placing it among the oldest exposed rocks in Europe. Geologists mapped these formations across Lewis, Harris, and parts of the northwest mainland, tracing a record that predates the Alps, the Himalayas, and even the first plants. Scotland's foundation is deep time itself, visible in every weathered outcrop. Much of Scotland's bedrock was already ancient, long before the world's most famous mountain ranges even existed. The rocks that form the Highlands, including Louisian gneiss, Moynish schists, and Dalradian quartzites, date back up to 3 billion years. These ancient stones predate the Alps, which began rising only 50 million years ago, and the Himalayas, younger still at about 40 to 50 million years. The Rocky Mountains, icons of North America, are mere newcomers at 80 million years. While Mont Blanc, Everest, and Denali tower in height, the stone beneath Scottish feet is nearly 3 billion years older. These mountains may have lost their youthful peaks to time, but the foundation remains, carved from a crust that predates modern continents. Scotland's deep time legacy is not measured in summits, but in the sheer age of the earth beneath. A single line cuts across Scotland, unmistakable from space, a geological boundary stretching 220 kilometers from Helensburgh on the Clyde to Stonehaven on the North Sea. This is the Highland Boundary Fault, a scar left by ancient continental collisions during the Caledonian orogeny nearly 400 million years ago. To the north and west, the land rises sharply into the Highlands, built from hard metamorphic rocks shaped under intense pressure. South and east, the ground softens into rolling lowlands of younger sedimentary stone. The fault does more than divide scenery. It shapes rivers, roads, and even weather. Satellite images reveal its diagonal slash across the country, a visible reminder that Scotland's landscape is still ruled by the forces that built it. The very bedrock sets the stage for what comes next, volcanic peaks rising in the heart of its capital. Edinburgh sits on the bones of an ancient volcano, its cityscape shaped by eruptions that shook the land nearly 350 million years ago. Arthur's Seat, rising 251 meters above the city, is the worn-down heart of a carboniferous volcano, its slopes now a green refuge at the city's edge. Just to the west, Castle Rock stands as a volcanic plug, a solid core of cooled lava left behind when the softer rock around it eroded away. Edinburgh Castle perches atop this crag, while the Royal Mile runs along a tail of glacial debris, a classic crag and tail formation carved by ice moving east. This geology isn't just a backdrop, it dictates the city's layout and skyline, blending urban life with a landscape born of fire. Few capitals can claim to be built on a volcano, but in Edinburgh, Every street echoes with ancient eruptions. Rainfall in the Western Highlands defies all expectations for a temperate country. Met Office gauges on the slopes of Ben Nevis and in Glen Etive regularly record over 4,000 millimeters of rain each year, with some peaks reaching as high as 4,577 millimeters. That is nearly twice the average rainfall of the Amazon rainforest, where 2,300 millimeters is the norm. The reason is the Atlantic, moisture-laden air slams into mountains rising over 1,000 meters, is forced upward, cools, and releases torrents of rain. The result is a landscape where rivers run full year round, moss carpets every stone, and green dominates every view. This deluge is not a rare event. It is the climate year after year, shaping forests, glens, and even the way people build their homes. On Scotland's east coast, the climate flips the script. Dunbar, perched on the North Sea, averages just 550 millimeters of rain a year, less than Barcelona's 600 millimeters. This is not a one-off. Towns like Dundee and even Edinburgh often record less rainfall than Mediterranean cities. The reason lies in the Highlands. Mountains rising over 900 meters catch Atlantic storms, wringing them dry before the clouds reach the east. Within just 200 kilometers, rainfall can drop from meters to barely half a meter. The result is a patchwork of climates, lush, rain-soaked valleys in the west and dry farmland struggling with drought in the east. Nowhere else in Britain does weather change so sharply, so quickly, in such a short distance. A journey of just 200 kilometers in Scotland can take you from Arctic tundra to gardens that feel almost Mediterranean. On the Cairngorm Plateau, above 1,000 meters, ptarmigan nest among wind-blasted rocks, sharing space with dwarf willows and alpine saxifrages that usually grow far north of the Arctic Circle. Snow can linger here into June, even as the valleys below begin to warm. Yet drive west to the shores of Inverurie and you will find palm-like cordylines and subtropical rhododendrons thriving outdoors, their leaves catching the salty air. The Gulf Stream's warmth, combined with steep altitude drops and the ever-present sea, compresses these climate zones into a single, narrow country. Nowhere else in Britain does such a dramatic ecological shift happen so quickly. Scotland's geography squeezes an entire continent's worth of climates into a single sweep of land. Stand on any hillside in Scotland, and the ocean is never far. The farthest point from the sea sits near Glen Coich above Braemar, deep in the Cairngorms, but even here, the straight-line distance to salt water is only about 65 kilometres. Ordnance Survey calculations confirm there is no spot in Scotland more than 65 kilometres from the coast, a distance some countries would call a short commute. This proximity shapes every aspect of life and weather. Maritime air sweeps across the land year-round, softening winters and keeping summers cool. The Gulf Stream's warmth reaches even the inland glens, making harsh extremes rare. With the sea always within reach, Scotland's climate, culture and settlements remain tethered to the tides, reinforcing its identity as a nation defined by water. Across the Highlands, emptiness takes on a scale rarely seen in Western Europe. The Highland Council region covers 26,484 square kilometres, nearly a third of Scotland's land, but supports only about 235,000 people. That's just 8 people per square kilometre, a figure lower than much of Arctic Norway. The landscape that once held tight-knit communities now rolls on, mile after mile, with barely a house or a road in sight. This is not just the result of harsh terrain or northern latitude. In the 18th and 19th centuries, the Highland clearances forced thousands from their homes, leaving behind wide glens where only deer and golden eagles roam. Today, the Highlands stand as one of Europe's last true wildernesses, a place where silence stretches further than the roads and the human footprint fades into the hills. Glasgow once powered the world's shipyards. At the height of the Clyde's industrial might, around 46% of Britain's ship tonnage was launched from its banks, outbuilding every other British port combined. Legendary vessels like the Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth were assembled at John Brown and Company in Clydebank. Geography gave Glasgow its edge, a deep, sheltered estuary that could handle the largest hulls and easy rail links to Lanarkshire's coal and iron. The river's wide, navigable channel meant shipyards could stretch for miles, each slipway feeding a global appetite for steamers, liners, and warships. For generations, families in Clydeside lived by the tides and the clang of steel, their skills turning raw geography into the engine of an empire. In the winter of 1850, a violent storm tore across Orkney, stripping away turf and sand from a low mound near the Bay of Scale. Beneath the battered earth, stone walls and passages appeared, revealing Skara Brae, a Neolithic village frozen in time. Radiocarbon dating places its origins around 3180 BCE, making it older than Stonehenge's Great Stone Circle and even the pyramids of Giza. Inside, stone beds, hearths and dressers remain exactly where their builders left them, preserved by the sand for nearly 5,000 years. Skara Brae stands as Europe's best preserved prehistoric settlement, a window into a sophisticated community that thrived before most of Britain's ancient monuments were even imagined. Where others see myth, Orkney's exposed stones are proof. Scottish culture's roots run deeper than almost anywhere else in Europe. Scotland now produces more renewable electricity than it uses, a feat unmatched anywhere else in the UK. By 2020, official figures recorded that 97.4% of Scotland's gross electricity consumption came from renewables. In some years since, total generation has reached as high as 113% of domestic demand. Most of this power comes from wind, with onshore turbines scattered across Highland hills and offshore giants like the Beatrice Wind Farm in the Moray Firth, which alone can power hundreds of thousands of homes. Hydroelectric stations, some dating back to the mid-20th century, still harness the force of Highland rivers and lochs. Geography is the engine. Constant Atlantic winds, steep glens, and vast catchments make Scotland's landscape a natural powerhouse. The surplus is not just kept at home, it flows south to the rest of Britain and even overseas, proving that geography is not just history, it is a modern advantage measured in megawatts. Irn-Bru isn't just a soft drink in Scotland, it's a statement. While Coca-Cola sits at the top of sales charts in almost every country on Earth, here it is the bright orange bottle that leads the pack. Year after year, Irn-Bru outsells Coke across Scotland's supermarkets, corner shops and football stadiums. This isn't a recent fluke or a one-off marketing coup. Since at least the 1980s, Irn-Bru has held the #1 spot, even as global giants poured millions into advertising campaigns. The secret isn't just in the recipe, but in the sense of mischief and pride that comes with every can. AG Bar's legendary Made in Scotland from Gerda's campaign, launched in 1984, turned industrial grit into national identity with tongue-in-cheek ads that became instant classics. Across generations, Irn-Bru has been the drink of choice for hangovers, celebrations, and everyday moments, a fizzy badge of belonging. In a world where uniform brands dominate, Scotland quietly keeps its own champion on top. Geography shapes the land, but sometimes it shapes the taste buds too. Only here does a homegrown drink outshine the world's biggest name. That's Scottish exceptionalism, measured not just in miles or meters, but in every bottle opened and every toast raised. Across all 20 entries, one pattern stands out. Scotland's geography doesn't just defy the norms of the UK, it rewrites the rulebook for what a nation can be. From ancient stone to modern energy, its extremes are measurable, not mythical. That uniqueness shapes its climate, resources, and even culture. In a world chasing sameness, Scotland proves data can define difference. Which fact surprised you most? Let us know below.